Hello, this is a public meeting of the Arts United Application Review Panel convened to review and discuss the Indiana Arts Commission FY24 Arts Project Support Grant Program applications for Region 3. I'm Alex Hall. I'm located in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and I am today's review panel facilitator. Today is Monday, May 1st, and we are meeting online and streaming live for the applications and for the public to observe the application process. There's no contact between the panel and the audience about the disposition of applicants before, during, or after the panel meeting. This meeting will be recorded and it will be made available upon request. At this time, I will individually invite each of the panelists and staff to introduce themselves. Please state your name, your occupation, where you are from in the state. Let's start with the panel. Andy?
I'm Andy Mosley. I work at AWS Foundation here in Fort Wayne, and I am the Grants and Outreach Coordinator.
Thank you. Barrett?
Hi, I'm Barrett Seals. I am a freelance oboist in Indiana. I'm currently in Fort Wayne.
Thank you. Brandon?
Hi, I am Brandon. I am an arts educator in Fort Wayne, teaching drama and leading the arts program at Weiser Park Arts Magnet School.
Gabrielle?
Hi, I'm Gabriel. I teach voice at Sweetwater's Academy of Arts and Technology, and I'm also a freelance singer and songwriter.
Thank you. Heather?
Hi, I'm Heather Clausen. I'm the Vice President for Community Engagement at Arts United, who is the partner to the IAC for Region 3.
Thank you. And Phil?
Yes, I'm Phil Slane. I'm the director of the annual fund drive here at Arts United of Greater Fort Wayne, also serving alongside Heather as one of the regional arts partners for the Indiana Arts Commission.
Thank you. Okay, now we will begin the panel review. This is how the process will work. I will announce the application that we will be reviewing, and I will ask the first reader to begin the discussion. The first reader will provide their assessment of the application based upon the evaluation criteria and their perspective. Panelists, please note that applications do not need to be recapped since everyone's already read it. So please just provide your comments. After the first reader is finished, I'll ask the second reader to present any new, additional, or opposing comments. We are not looking for consensus, just a full evaluation from the different perspective that each panelist brings to the table. After the second reader is finished, I will then open the discussion for final comments. Remember, in the interest of time, there are only going to be new, additional, or opposing viewpoints, please, when we open the floor. If a panelist has a conflict of interest, that panelist will be placed in the virtual waiting room while the application is being reviewed. Finally, once the application has been reviewed by the full panel, we will pause to let the panel update their scores in the online system. It is common for scores to change as a result of this broader discussion. These scores save automatically. Are there any questions from the panel regarding this information? Great. So let's begin. We'll start with application 1, Allen County Fort Wayne Historical Society, the History Center, and our first reader is going to be Andy. So Andy, please unmute yourself and go ahead.
Hi, so I think one of the first things that stood out to me, especially in the goals, was that they had a pretty clear goal of reaching 670 visitors, but that was the only real concrete goal that there was, and I would have liked to see a few more, especially on the education of the community on the Miami tribe and their cultures. Specifically, maybe something like seeing in the evaluation or a survey that they felt more knowledgeable about it after they left. I think this is a great impact for the community. The fact that they have members of the Miami tribe as the artists and the presenters, I think that is giving the community a very authentic experience and helping us understand the lives led in that culture. I found the artist stipend to be kind of low for 18 artists. I don't know if there is a reason for that. Maybe many of them just feel like they're donating their time for the greater good of the community. And I do see the benefit of educating the community on their culture. In project management, oh, no, skipped a section. Sorry, I'm trying to read my notes here. In idea, again, when you're reaching, the subject of the event is a diverse population, and the fact that it is a free event, it helps cover those with low income to be able to access. So I saw that as a great asset to the community. Sorry, Mike. I'm trying to scroll and it's not doing it. The Miami tribe are at the decision-making table, and I think that's really important to make the proper decisions to put on an event that is about their culture. Their methods of inclusion were stated very clearly, and they even included accessibility, physical accessibility, and how that would be implemented. Their outcomes and measurement, how they would measure their outcomes was very clear, and that they would take that back to make adjustments for the future. The one thing in marketing that I noticed is they had mentioned that they would like to get different people, maybe younger people, to come to the event, and many of the way that they were marketing the event were people that were already subscribed to their channels or local media, and many people don't consume local media at all and probably wouldn't already be on their channel. So I thought that it might be beneficial to them to find other ways to promote the events, possibly partnering with local businesses such as breweries that people like that go to promote the event, so that it could get to a wider audience. And oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, guys. I'm trying to get this. There we go. To scroll. I think they have a pretty solid plan on staffing. Their timeline, it was very specific, and I only had a note of improvement to note in the timeline when the marketing would begin, because marketing is such a huge impact on the attendance of the event, and the budget seemed reasonable. I would suggest finding other ways to fundraise for hosting the event, because a huge part of the financial burden laid on the History Center itself.
Thank you, Andy. Now we are discussing the application Allen County Fort Wayne Historical Society, the History Center, and we're going to have the second speaker. Go ahead, Brandon.
Thanks, Andy. I agree with everything. Absolutely. You hit nearly every point I have in here. One suggestion that I also had is, in the project timeline, I see that between December 2022 and April 2023, that there's planning and coordinating happening. And I'm curious as to what that planning and coordinating looks like, especially at what point are the artists and the Miami Tribe individuals and leaders and other stakeholders, when are they coming to the table to collaborate on this event? I know that they have said that it is happening, but I'm just curious how that kind of all unfolds here. That's all I have to add.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments from other panelists? Okay. All right, then we will look at the second application, and this is for the AISGC Inc. And we'll open with the first reader, Barrett.
We want to allow just a minute for people to update anything first.
Yep, sorry about that. We'll pause and go ahead and update those scores in the system. Okay, are we ready to move to the second applicant? All right, sorry about that. So for our second applicant, it's the AISGC Inc., and we will open with the first reader, Barrett. Please go ahead.
Okay. I felt like the description of this project clearly described the artistic goals of the project. It would be good if there were more specifics on how the project has progressed from past years to show maybe a more detailed plan for changes and improvements going into the future. It is clear that there is a strong artistic element to this project. The area that I found lacking would be a focus on local Indiana artists versus promoting artists from outside of Indiana. The one specific artist, I guess this gets in my next section. There is an indirect benefit to Indiana artists, local steel guitar players, people learning the arts. But the grant funds are entirely slated to go to artists outside of Indiana, and all those funds are basically to pay for the travel of that individual from Hawaii to Indiana. In addition, in the application itself, it states that there would not be any other artists that benefit from this project. If local artists are going to be involved, it would be really great to see more detail on how they would be involved and how there might be some benefit there. Again, for the local artists themselves. As far as community engagement, I think that obviously introducing people in Indiana to Hawaiian culture is certainly an important thing. But I don't necessarily feel that this doesn't necessarily meet the criteria of serving an underserved community. There should maybe be more specific demonstration of how the organization will be working directly with the local community where it's going to be involved. While there have been changes and improvements listed to this project over the years, a more clear demonstration of the applicant's idea strategies and how they plan to implement those would be useful. And there should be a more formalized method for measuring the project impact afterwards. And lastly, as far as timeline, project management, I thought all these questions were clearly answered. The timeline was well laid out, and it's apparent that the organization has been and is currently being managed very well. And that's what I have.
Thank you. And we will now have the second reader, Gabriel, regarding the application AISGC Inc.
I really agreed with a lot of what Barrett said. The one thing that I didn't think got mentioned that I was thinking of, this seems to be outside of Winchester, Indiana. This organization is kind of bringing this event to Winchester, Indiana. And they mentioned that there aren't a lot of opportunities to develop their event with the communities they intend to serve. And I was wondering if there were any local steel guitar enthusiasts or community members that they've met there over the years since this has happened many years in a row that could help them in their planning or the structuring of the event. And I'm wondering if there's anybody from Winchester specifically on their board. I think that was the only thing I had that differed from what Barrett mentioned.
Thank you, Gabriel. Do any other panelists have additional comments?
I might suggest to bolster the impact that the artistic quality of this project has. It seems that really the project is this 3-day festival of performances, closing with a cultural dining experience at the end. But I don't believe that there's any sort of educational happenings as a part of it, other than participants coming and either participating, actively performing, or listening to a concert. And I think that the artistic quality of this event would go up a whole lot. and it would have a greater impact on artists from Indiana if there were some educational opportunities, whether those were Q&As with people or hands-on educational classes or something like that. That was just a thought that I had.
Thank you. Are there any additional thoughts from the panel? Okay, then please take a moment to finalize your scores and update those online comments. And if you could just indicate after you're ready, I'll be able to move on to the next application. Thank you. Okay, we are going to move on to applicant 3, Auburn Automotive Heritage, or ACDC Museum. And our first reader is going to be Brandon.
All righty. For the general artistic quality of this project, I think that it's the right idea of sort of period specific classes that can be offered to the community to enjoy, to teach something beyond just coming to a museum, but more of a hands-on experience to go along with the history that can be learned there, but doing so in a more artistic way than just enjoying the things there at the museum. I do believe that this is the first year that they will be doing this. Yeah, they've not done the project before, so it sounds like a great start. There's obviously no data or anything to look at about the impact that it's had in the past, but they do discuss sort of that people have been looking for something like that. And it's great that now that they're going to try this sort of thing. So I really just think that the program sounds like it's probably going to be successful. I really appreciate that they are using local Indiana artists from the Auburn area and from the Fort Wayne area to teach these classes. That is going to surely have a financial and artistic impact on those local artists. Really like to see that. Moving on to the IDEA section, they speak in the application a lot about how with this project, but also just in their organization as a whole, they have been doing a lot of IDEA training for their staff, and ensuring that they are including a wide variety of patrons, and that their staff there at the museum are able to interact with these individuals in a variety of different ways. That was really great to see. But I would urge them to continue exploring what specific underserved communities that they are going to engage through this project, and then how they're going to engage them. And not only physically engaging, like for instance, I saw in their marketing materials for the photography class that you have to bring your own camera. And so there's a barrier there for anyone that doesn't have a camera. So what are some, physical accommodations that we can make for, people to still participate, even if they don't have the means to provide their own sorts of materials or whatever that might be. But then also, how are those underserved community members going to be involved in the planning of these events? It sounds as though The idea for these events came from some feedback that they had received in surveys from people who already come to the museum. But if we're interested in finding other members from underserved communities, how are we finding out from them what sorts of arts classes would be of interest to them and would make them want to come? And yeah, it's just important to find authentic ways to reach out to these targeted audiences to see what they'd be interested in, to ensure that the engagement is going to be meaningful, impactful, and of a high artistic quality in a way that is going to bring them in the door to want to participate in this project. And then in the last section, project management, the balanced budget looks great, and it's very straightforward that there's great teachers in place to teach these things. The timeline is very, very clear. I appreciated all of that. That's all I've got.
Thank you, Brandon. We will now have our second reader, Barrett, go ahead and speak to the Auburn Automotive Heritage, or ACD, Museum application.
Hi, yes, I agree very much with everything that Brandon just said. I appreciate the fact that they do address specific aspects of the idea strategies and how they want to implement that. But I also agree with Brandon's suggestions on improvements. The only one area where I would add in is, as far as the budget goes, the fact that a minimal amount seems to really be going towards the artists themselves out of the budget. Obviously, for a lot of these projects, program supplies is probably a definitely large expense, but I think it could be useful to show more of a financial impact to the artists themselves. That's what I have.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments from the other panelists regarding this application? Okay, then please take a moment to finalize your scores and update your online comments. And if you could indicate when you're ready with a thumbs up, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. Okay. Are we ready to go on to the fourth application then? Great. So our first reader for the fourth applicant is going to be Gabriel, and this is the application for the Children's Choir of Huntington County.
All right, starting with their goals, I found that their goal description was very clear. 30 years of experience was definitely used to build the project over time. I liked the provided number of performances. It made it very easy to imagine the intended impact to the community, especially since these performances are free. I would have liked for artistic quality to see more videos of the choirs performing. I think only 2 of their choirs were represented in the videos. I would have liked to see the range of abilities that they were working with. Let's see. Scrolling down. As for the artist support, the budget seemed reasonable. I was wondering if maybe in another section of their response, if they could say whether this project benefits the artist in non-monetary ways. That'd be a way to further strengthen this area. Let's see. I had a very clear description of the underserved communities that they're intending to reach. Their whole region seems like there's a dearth of arts education opportunities. Let's see. I saw a lot of different parts of their community involved in the decision-making process. I was glad to see that surveys are conducted at the end of the season, but I was wondering if there could also be a mid-season survey that would allow for changes to be made sooner if there's an issue, and they could even serve as a measure of growth throughout the season. I was also wondering who is on the advisory committee for their Joyful Songsters, the differently abled choir that they have. I saw that the Pathfinder staff was included in the process, but I was wondering if any of the songsters themselves might be included in that advisory committee. I saw a lot of commitment to inclusion in their idea narrative. I was wondering if there was another way to provide some diversity. They said they were teaching about other cultures and other languages, perhaps bringing somebody in from the musical traditions that they're teaching to provide additional instruction, like inviting a director of a gospel choir to aid in teaching that kind of music, or even consulting a native speaker when they're performing foreign languages. I'm not sure if they already do that. If they do, that would be a great thing to mention in their application. I also had a minor concern that people of other faiths and cultures might feel unwelcome in their choirs because the rehearsal and performance space is specifically a Christian church. That might make it more welcoming if they were to use a community center or a school or something like that. That's more of a touchstone for more people in their community. I saw a great philosophy regarding equity in the context of a choir in this section as well. But outside of musical equity, providing support for all abilities, I want to specifically know how they're making sure all the singers feel seen and valued. They mentioned this, but they didn't give any specifics. So like if solos or small group performances are involved, how do you help those that may be feeling left out, that didn't get a solo, still feel important? Access is somewhere I'd also like to see more elaboration on. Their approach to helping low-income families is clear-cut, well-implemented. I love to see the scholarships. I wanted to see more about accommodations for those with physical disabilities. Like, is the church they use wheelchair accessible? Are those with autism or other sensory issues considered? Let's see, moving to project management. I thought that their staff were very qualified. Seemed like there were enough people there that they went and actually listed to be boots on the ground and actually help this project happen. Their timeline looked very clear, very well considered. The budget as well was a great strength in this application. And that's what I have.
Thank you, Gabriel. And now we'll invite Andy, the panelist, to share her comments.
Gabriel actually hit on pretty much all of my points. I will say one thing, I don't have any constructive feedback because he actually hit on a lot of the things that I wanted to bring up. But I did really enjoy reading about how they, to be inclusive, you audition and then they place you in the category instead of auditioning for a specific thing. That way everyone gets to participate. You meet them at their level. So that was just the only positive feedback that I wanted to add.
Thank you very much. Do we have any additional comments from the panel regarding the Children's Choir of Huntington County application? Go ahead, Brendan.
I have a couple regarding the impact of the artistic quality impact. I struggled with understanding the crux of the goal of this project. It says that the goal was to support the operational cost of the concert series. and they listed things like a rental of the space and paying for the music and paying for the directors. And then most of the application talks about the impact that the art has on the singers. And it's very, very, very clear that this organization is doing great things that are very impactful for the singers. But what I think is greatly missing is what impact it's having on the audience. And I think that that is the most important thing if the goal of the project is to receive funds for operational costs for the concert series. To me, that sounds audience-based, and then that's not exactly artist-based. So I would just be very interested to see what impact does the music making and does this organization have on their audiences? And then that also ties into the thoughts that I have about the community engagement. It's very clear that there are IDEA strategies for the singers, for the members of the choirs, for how they are engaging those members. But now, what are the IDEA strategies and what does community engagement and marketing look like for the audiences that they want to see at the concert series that the grant funding is intended for? Yeah, so just all of that. I would love to see more audience-based language here in this grant application if the funds are supposed to directly impact the cost for the concert series themselves.
Thank you, Brandon. Are there any other additional or opposing comments regarding this application? Okay, then I'll ask the panelists to please finalize your scores and update your online comments. And please let me know if you need more time. We're going to pause for just a moment. Okay, if everyone's ready, we're going to go ahead and look at applicant Creative Women of the World. And I'll invite the first panelist, Gabriel, to speak.
All right. I found that the goals for this project were really well written and clear. It's clear that they have a strong idea of what they want to do in mind. The artistic quality of the examples they provided was really, really great. I did hesitate to give that area a higher score because I'm not sure that this specific program is particularly artist-based in nature. It seemed a little more geared toward business, and I couldn't quite get an idea of what the business presentations would be as far as quality by the examples they provided of the art. I was wondering who the speakers they were planning to have would be. They mentioned one by name and she sounded really qualified, but I wanted to see a little more information in that area. And once again, as far as artist support, I didn't have any details on the scope of the workshops, like the time commitment or the prior prep work or the class size. So I couldn't quite accurately judge how much the amount they listed was going to benefit each artist. Let's see. I saw that underserved communities, they listed specific ones. They seemed like they would benefit a lot from this. And they're also doing very well to involve the community that they intend to serve in their project planning. Let's see. Looking at specifics, I would love to see more specific ways in which they are addressing barriers as part of their IDEA strategies. I wasn't sure if the workshops are free of charge. And if not, one of the areas of the population they're wanting to serve is those with low income. I'm wondering if that's going to be a barrier for those with low income. I was going to ask if the workshops are going to be held in accessible buildings for those with physical disabilities. And as far as increasing access, I was wanting to see where and how they're advertising the workshops. And are they making the communities they serve aware of them, or are they mostly advertised to those who are already part of their program? Because that's kind of what their description was making me think, that it was mostly for those that are already involved in their program. I saw that they're using social media as well as on-site surveys to gauge their impact, which is something that I've been thinking about a lot, because not everybody is going to follow your social media page or even have access to the internet. So I'm glad that they have on-site surveys to gauge their impact. I wanted to see marketing materials made specifically for these workshops rather than a general link to their website, which looked great, but didn't give me an idea of who they were trying to serve and how. Let's see. Looking at project management, their lead staff seemed very well qualified. I would love to know more about the people that they intend to have presenting the workshops and their qualifications as well. They had a great planning timeline written out. I thought maybe on a smaller scale, having a timeline of how they want a specific workshop to look, as far as like how much, like how long is it, what's covered, how much is lecture versus discussion or something like that. Their timeline of a sample class, for example. Their budget, very well balanced, very well considered. And I said, since the IAC money is their only anticipated income, I was wondering if they could get more community support as far as funding. And that's what I have on that.
Thank you, Gabriel. So we're discussing the Creative Women of the World application, and we're now going to have the second reader, Barrett, speak.
Hi, yes. I agree with a lot of what Gabriel just said. Maybe working backwards, the lack of information as far as the schedule goes, and I guess maybe some of that is just not available yet, it's still in the planning processes. But what did I write specifically here? Maybe giving more specifics about the class schedule and specific events that plan to be held through the year will be useful. And I agree the fact that 100% of the budget seems to be coming from IAC. Maybe trying to seek out other additional means of funding would be very useful, and would show that this project is pushing to a larger scope to make sure that they can actually fulfill their goals that they want. One area I would slightly disagree with is that I do feel like there is a strong artistic impact here, in the fact that this project is very much geared towards developing business understanding and strategies for local artists, which those of us that are in the art field, it's something that's very lacking in our education in almost all situations. We don't know how to take what we want to do as an art form and then actually be able to make it work for us so we can actually afford to live. And the one last very minor thing I would add, as far as the application itself, the acronym LOTUS, I have no idea what that means. So if you're going to use an acronym, please make sure that you include exactly what it is, for those of us that might just not be familiar with it, the area or whatever else. So I think that's it.
Thank you, Barrett. Do any of the other panelists have new information or an opposing comment to share? Okay, wonderful. Please finalize your scores and update those online comments and indicate when you're ready with a thumbs up. Great. We are going to move on to the application for the Decatur Arts Commission. And our first panelist that's going to speak on this application is Andy.
I first want to say that I thought this was a really creative idea. And I, on as far as the goals go, I understand that it was a fundraiser and it was to get the community involved in helping raise funds to then put out more artistic opportunities for the community. Though I would have liked to see some more concrete goals, like how many people do they want attending or do they foresee attending? And also, if it is a fundraiser, how much money are you anticipating in raising? And because that's kind of an important goal if you're going to have a fundraiser. And I think that would have made this a little stronger in this section. I think that they will have a great impact on the whole community as far as artistic expression, having everyone in the community involved. They have different groups, different artists, and like they're involving students in the schools, senior center members. And I think that is really important to get everyone involved and have the buy-in from the community. Under artist support, I was pretty concerned. There's no rule that there has to be financial information or financial support of the artist specifically, but the way the application was written, it was as if no artists were benefiting at all, which isn't actually true. They are giving back to their community. They are being, they're exposing their art to the community, and they're getting feedback from the community on their artwork. There is positive benefit for the artists to participate beyond financial, and that just wasn't mentioned in the application at all. In community engagement and idea, I think that, you know, they supported. I was really concerned when I saw that it was going to be in the woods, like how are strollers and wheelchairs going to get through, but they addressed that. So that was really nice to see. Though I would have liked to see maybe a breakdown of the diversity in the community. They said all is welcome, but what does that really look like? And who are they actually inviting? And there's a difference between being invited and feeling welcome. I think, I think they did a great job, and like I said earlier, inviting the whole community to participate in it, and that they invited community members in the planning was important. I think that they, like I said, they hit accessibility. They gave me that, but what about, and the fact that the projects that will be at the event are also super simple, as they stated, that helps someone with maybe a cognitive disability be easily involved with the projects as well. So that was really great to see. They have good ways of getting feedback. And I think it's an admirable goal to reach out to larger communities like Fort Wayne in the future. I would just like to see how they plan on doing that marketing wise. Project management, it seems like they have a clear and effective staff with their partnerships in the city. I think that they gave a detailed timeline. I think that the budget is pretty small, and I understand again that they're looking for a fundraiser, but I think that they could increase. It didn't show how the attendance fees would factor in to the event at all. And that is kind of important to see how much beyond, like how much you're actually going to be making from the fundraiser beyond what the attendance fees are going to help with. And I think that could also increase your marketing budget and reach more people. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Andy. We're discussing the Decatur Arts Commission application, and the next panelist we're going to have speak to that application is Brandon.
Thanks, Andy. I would like to add that it's pretty unclear to me what the impact is that the event is going to have on not only, like Andy has said, about how it's impacting the artists financially and all of that, but I think more importantly, what impact it's going to have beyond just something that's recreational and fun for the community. I don't see anywhere in the application where we are talking about how exactly the event is going to be meaningful, impactful, or how the artistic quality is going to be high. To me, the event is reading as a fun day out, but nothing that is super impactfully artistic. And so I think that just overall kind of troubled me at the ground level of what exactly this project is. And so I'm interested to see how could you involve the community more in the planning, and then how could you make what is going to be experienced at the event more impactful, so that it goes beyond something that is just fun for the community to enjoy, but that they can actually learn from, perhaps. And there is a great amount of time is spent in the IDEA strategies discussing accessibility, but these strategies have to go so far beyond just what accessibility for disabled persons are we going to have. I think that what is largely missing is what underserved community members are you interested in bringing in to this event? How are you going to market to them? How are you going to interest them in it? Who are those underserved community members? Because in your community, it's surely more than just the ones that you're mentioning in the application. There are certainly other racial and ethnic groups, ones that have cultural differences, low socioeconomic level individuals. Figure out how to get all of those people to come to the event. And that was it. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandon. Do we have any other additional or new opposing comments? Go ahead, Gabriel.
Okay, as I was looking at the projected participation, I'm seeing that 25 adults, 6 children, and 5 artists are going to be involved. I may be wrong in this, but I'm wondering how many audience members they're expecting to participate in this. And if so, that would have given me a better idea of how much money they're looking to raise. I had to go searching through their marketing materials to see that the admission was going to be $8. So if they gave me some of those numbers up front, that would have been very useful. Another thing, the fairy house decorating, amazing idea, once again is held in a church, which might discourage members of certain groups from participating in that particular activity. And I think that's all I have.
Are there any other comments from the panel? Okay, then please finalize those scores and update your online comments, and let me know if you need more time. We're going to pause for just a moment. Thank you. Okay, we are all ready to look at the next application from the Downtown Angola Coalition. Our first panelist is going to speak to this application is Barrett.
Just pulling it up here real quick. I appreciated the specific details that were given for all the artists and groups that were involved, and including the monetary amounts. I thought that is very well laid out in the application. It's apparent that this their various projects have been well thought out and the specific goals were outlined for this. The project covers a wide range of artistic disciplines and supports local Northeast Indiana artists, which I feel really fits in well with the purpose of these grants. And again, going into artistic support, there's various artistic forms are all included with this project, with plenty of details given for each. There are a large number of artists that are being supported throughout the project. Under the community engagement section, it'd be useful to have more specific demonstration of how the project plans to work with, not just for the community, and how the project would increase access to underserved communities. If the surveys are going to be a primary source of measuring the impact, I would like to see more details on specifics on how those surveys would be utilized. And the staffing expectations are very clearly laid out. Although I would like to see more specifics in the timeline. Let me pull up the timeline just to make sure I know what I'm referring to in my comments here. Yeah, so the timeline is very generalized, and just having more specifics, more key goals and goal points along the development of the project would be very useful. And one last thing I would say, as far as the management section, instead of referring to yourself in first person, maybe list the name of the person that's actually overseeing the project, so that I'm not looking at this and becoming confused as to who's actually leading the organization or who's actually managing the project. So listing specific names would be useful. And that is what I have.
Thank you, Barrett. We're discussing the Downtown Angola Coalition, and we'll have the second panelist to speak to this application, Gabriel, begin.
All righty. Let's see. Areas that I differed from Barrett. I saw that there was staffing listed, and the head organizers and implementers of each project are clear, and they sound very well qualified. I'm missing information as to the boots on the ground, as it were, listing numbers for volunteers or staff that they need to have for something this big. And I wasn't sure if staff from the RISE program would be assisting with the mural, if any of the Easter Seals RISE participants needed aids or anything like that. You could also count those in your staffing. Let's see. I foresaw a huge impact on elementary age children as far as underserved groups, simply because you said that the area no longer has art in the elementary schools. Let's see. Just the strategy of making these events free to the public is a great way to improve access. I'm kind of working backward here. I was wondering as to how much of the money that they're paying the artists is going directly to the artists, like individually, because not a lot of numbers of how many artists in each specific group, say like the jazz orchestra or the glass studio, how much of that money as it would be portioned out to the artists. That would have helped me make a better call on whether this was appropriately paying them for their time and effort. And I'd say that's about it for me.
Thank you, Gabriel. Do we have any other opposing comments or new information from the panel? Okay, go ahead, Brandon.
So For artistic quality goals, I said that I would be curious to know how the festival has been received in the past, assuming that it has been presented before. I just was not clear if it has been or if it has not been. They mentioned that they have data from something that they call the HCI, that indicates that the arts are in need for the community, that the community members are saying that they want more arts. But I would like to know what specific areas of the arts the community is looking to experience and what areas of the arts they want to participate in. In the project demonstrating, they've not responded to how their organization is going to use past experiences to inform this year's planning. For example, was there an outpouring for the youth theater camp to be started? They do mention that there's a lack of arts in the elementary school, but is theater an area that the community is saying that they want to see be bolstered? The Janelle Sloan mural is being done in collaboration with the community, which is going to be impactful. And so that's kind of like a way that they are using a very concrete example of a way that they're using something that the community wants. I'm just curious why they've decided what they want to do at this festival, and if the community was involved in that planning, or if their voice was heard in that planning. I also had several concerns about the IDEA section. And I think to get my point across here, I think I'm just going to read the ideas that I gave to kind of just make it very clear. I think what is lacking overall is clear language of what their strategies are. And so there's just a lot of questions that I have. So I've said that they state that disabled and special needs individuals are being served by the project. But they mentioned that community is already routinely engaged with all of their downtown events that are sponsored by this organization. As such, I'm not sure that it would be appropriate to say that that community is being underserved by this organization at this time. And I don't think that they are lacking access to what this organization is already serving. So what other underserved communities are not being served by their organization at this time that this festival could serve? I appreciate the specifics on youth. But in number 2, they mentioned that the special needs individuals will be included in the planning of the mural, but not specifically how they're going to be involved in that planning. It seems that the organization is very interested in engaging the special needs community, but why? What's their reason for that? How does that fit into the mission of this organization? What tools and methods have been and will be used to measure the impact that this art has, and specifically this project? What impact is it going to make on the community? The Facebook page looks to be engaging, but I'm not seeing where the information is on how they're going to engage these specific community members from underserved communities. An example of marketing materials that are going to specifically target these individuals would have been very helpful to see. That's what I've got.
And I think, Andy, did you still have some comments as well? And we're discussing the Downtown Angola Coalition application.
I think Brandon touched on most of what I wanted to add, specifically, I was targeting the idea section as well. I will say that even though they do serve disabled people, disability is an underserved population, not just, maybe not by them, but in general. But something that I wanted to add is it's not really appropriate to use the term special needs. And I think that maybe the next time they come in with an application that they just kind of drop that from their vocabulary. Individuals with disabilities or intellectual disabilities, that's all fine.
Thank you. So we're going to go ahead and finalize your scores, please, and update your online comments. And please let me know if you need more time. We will pause for just a moment. Okay, great. So before we go on to the next application, we do have a conflict of interest. So we are going to ask that panelist to please excuse themselves for a moment. They're going to be transferred to a waiting room. As soon as we finish reviewing this application, we will bring him back. Let's just make sure he's out of the space. It looks like that's been taken care of. So we're going to go ahead and look at the next application, East Allen County Schools, and the first reader on that application is going to be Brandon.
Alrighty, the project goal sounds very clear, and it sounds like this project has been very impactful for these students and this district in the past, and sounds like it will be moving into the future in this next school year. It also appears with all of the materials that have been provided that the artistic quality is quite high, and they have several years to show of it having been high artistic quality. I appreciated that section a lot, and how in depth they were in this application with what impact it has had on the students and the artists alike. I appreciate that the funds are to be used to pay artists, as all of these artists are local Indiana artists, so it is clear that it will have a financial benefit on them. In the IDEA section, it's a bit unclear to me what exactly the underserved community is that is going to be served by this program. There's mention of the racial makeup of the students at the school, and that data is given, as well as I think that there was some information on socioeconomic level of the students in that demographic there. But an important factor of the IDEA requirements for this grant is that there has to be at least one underserved community that this project is going to impact. And what I'm curious about is why this project? Why is this the thing that this school is interested in doing? And so I'm curious as to, are they taking music class currently? Are they doing this project because historically this school has low ELA testing scores, and they needed to find a creative way to raise those test scores? To me, I would just make, I guess I would draw a conclusion that it probably exists because they're trying to fill a void that the school doesn't have. So these students are being underserved in music. Maybe they don't have music class, but that's not discussed at all. So I don't know. And so I think for me, it's just a big why. Why does this project exist? Why does it exist at this school specifically? They mention, I think in the district, that there's 3 Title I schools. So why this school over any other one? Or why is it only existing at one of the Title I schools and not the others? Or why has it only ever been done at this elementary school and we haven't tried to pilot the program at any of the other schools? So those are just all a lot of questions that I have concerning what is the community that is going to be served by this, and why this school, why these students, why the first graders, why not the fifth graders, just kind of all of those things. It's not necessarily clear here. And then project management, this whole section, responses were very, very clear. It's clear that the organization Heartland Sings is well managed, and that they are coming and bringing this this product to the school, and that it's well managed, and that it has been for several years, and they are just wanting to do this for yet another year. I really like the information about how Heartland is offsetting the overall cost of this program. I was surprised to see how expensive this program is, and that such a large percentage of the cost of it is being offset by the in-kind donation from Heartland Sings. So that was nice that they have another way to fund this beyond just what they are applying for this grant. What I've got.
Thank you, Brandon. And now we're going to have Andy speak to the East Allen County Schools application.
Brandon touched on a lot of what I had commented on, but I'm going to start at the end of my comments just to piggyback off of what he said towards the end about why this school, why here. I looked it up because one of my staffing recommendations was that the music teacher be involved. So I looked up to see if they do have a music teacher, and they do. So they're getting music class. So that still perpetuates that question of why this program at this school. So I think that still does. And so to touch on that point of feedback, I think it would be important to have the music teacher as part of this program, and they were not listed. Another point in the staffing, Phil Slane is not the development director at Heartland Sings anymore. I don't know how long it has been that Phil has not been there, but it's at least over a year. So just correcting some of those mistakes and for a clear application would be good. I think, one last thing, because otherwise Brandon really touched on this, touched on everything that I was going to say, is anecdotal feedback from the teachers is always great. And the having a more concrete survey for the teachers to get feedback would be important. And also just like a smiley face meter for the kids would also be helpful, because do the kids really want this? So I think that would be helpful for going forward.
Thank you, Andy. Do we have any other feedback from the remaining panelists here? Go ahead, Barrett.
Yes, I agree with a lot of what Brandon said. The one thing I might push back just a little bit on is as far as underserved communities, I feel like pretty much any public education system, the students, when it comes to the arts, is an underserved community. Questioning why this school and not another school, that's certainly a valid point. And there's probably lots of reasons, just depending on who wants to make the effort to try to present more arts to their students. I'm not familiar enough with the Allen County education system and the school structure to know exactly how all that works out. But I would consider that an underserved. The one area where would also add would be Find my specific comment here, which kind of goes along with what Brandon said, but it'd be good to demonstrate somewhere in the application how the community beyond just the school children is being impacted by this program. So pushing, a little bit further as far as showing a broader impact would be useful. And that's it.
Yeah, I want to just add two things that Andy and Barrett said that made me think about perhaps a way to show what kind of community impact it's having is they do a performance, it sounds like at the end of the school year or the term or whatever, in the very last week, and there was a video of that. But perhaps that could be made into some sort of community performance for the parents. It didn't sound like it was that. I think it was just like an in-class performance. So involving in the community in some way might be nice. And then just some like logistical things of the application that I also saw. You made mention of Phil not working there anymore, and his name is in there. There was also conflicting information on who the director of education was. There was a point at the beginning of the application that it mentioned one individual, and then at the end it was a completely different individual, but with the same title. So it might be because this has been a routine application, they've applied for this many years, there might have been a lot of copy and paste and that sort of thing. And it's always important to make sure all of that is updated. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, panelists. Please finalize your scores and update your online comments. And then we'll pause for just a moment after those scores are uploaded for us to bring Gabriel back into the room. Okay. I think we are ready to, oh, okay. We have a request for a 5-minute break. So you're welcome to go ahead and keep yourselves muted and we'll take 5 minutes and come right back. So it looks like that's going to be at about 3:18. Please be back in your chairs then. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. We are going to resume reviewing the applications. So we are going to take a look at the Japanese American Association of Indiana application, and I'll introduce Gabriel to speak first to that application.
All right. I noted that the program is well established and well attended. They wrote out clear goals for the money they hope to receive. I was wondering what they are hoping to accomplish by presenting the festival as far as artistic impact. I saw their commitment to use feedback from previous years. Their criteria for selection was a good thing to see, as it speaks to their goal of providing a quality artistic experience, but I wanted a few more details as far as what they consider representative of Japanese culture and of high quality. Like if they have like a rating system or something for that, or more specifics, I would have loved to see those. Let's see. There wasn't a lot of information on which of their artists will be paid and which will not. So I just kind of divided the figure up equally between 30 artists, and that seemed reasonable for the duration of the festival. But even aside from the financial benefit, the amount of artists that they're involving is a great thing to see. I didn't really see an underserved community identified in their narrative. I saw a few groups mentioned, like children, senior citizens, families, the Japanese community, teens of Asian heritage. But what makes them particularly underserved in the arts? I wanted to see some detail there. And how are they addressing that gap, more importantly? I wanted to see a little bit more in their idea strategies about how they're going to attempt to reach a diverse audience. I wanted to see quiet rooms for people that need time away from the crowds were a wonderful idea. I'm so glad they included that. Let's see. They seem to have a great system in place for assessing impact and gathering feedback for the community to access. And the photos represent the community that they're serving really, really well. Let's see. I was particularly impressed with the rundown of staffing. They listed very well qualified people as lead staff, but they also listed some of the volunteers, the committee members, the artists, and gave me a good idea of how many people are going to be pulling this off. The planning process looked really good. If they wanted to improve this area, adding a timeline of the day of the festival itself, as far as setup, tear down, the event schedule would be really helpful. I was really glad to see so much monetary support from the community in this application. They have a wide variety of sources of income, and they've obviously worked hard to build a wide support system for this event. That's it for me.
Thank you, Gabriel. We're now going to have Andy speak to the Japanese American Association of Indiana application.
Gabriel actually hit on pretty much everything that I was going to say, so I don't want to waste time piggybacking off of any of that. I will say that I think while there wasn't a clear view of, they didn't directly state how they are serving the underserved population, I did notice that having it at PFW, it's on a bus line and it was free. That is accessible to some people that may not have access to public to transportation and rely on public transportation and could not afford to go if it was at cost. So there is at least a little bit of financial impact there for the community.
Thank you, Andy. Are there any other comments from the other panelists posing or new comments? Okay, go ahead, Brandon.
So I think that to me, it's pretty clear that the intended and targeted community for this event is the Japanese American individuals in our city, and giving them an opportunity to share their art or to experience their art. That's very clear, and I love that, and that's great. And that does fit within the context of what the idea requirements are as a part of this grant. Because one of the categories is, geographical location. And so I think that's great. But I think it can just go further than that. There are other underserved communities within this area that I think that they can market to, and the festival would become even larger if they were thinking about what other people can we get in the door to this event. So just adding that to this application, or thinking about how can our audience go well beyond the largely targeted audience of the Japanese American community here in Fort Wayne.
Thank you, Brandon. Barrett, did you have anything to add? Okay. Then we are going to go ahead and please finalize your scores and update those comments, and give me an indication when you're ready, and we will move on to the next application. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, our next application is the Kikiyanga Festival, and the first panelist to speak to that application is going to be Andy.
Okay, I think that their goal is pretty clear, that they want to educate the community on the history of the area. I do think we could see a few more concrete goals, again, like number of attendees and what it means that how they're educating, with a survey, how that would look of, do people feel like they understand the event more, or the history more through the event. I think, cultural impact, it seems like people enjoy it and it's fun. One thing that I noticed that I thought really was beneficial is that they use a mix of returning performers and new. So it gets people excited to see their old favorites, but also it's not the same thing every year. And I think that's really important to make sure that you're continuing to impact the community with new experiences. But I would like to see a little more on, just how it would impact the community in an artistic way, maybe with specific types of, give more examples of what they would be learning about, maybe. I think as far as artists being paid, I thought it seemed low. Again, and there's a benefit other than financial that was not really touched on, that could have like artist exposure in the area, that I think that they could have gone into more detail on. In the community engagement section, I don't think they touched enough on how they are reaching an underserved community. Location, again, like Brandon said earlier in the day, is a huge part of that. And because their indicator, having something right there, indicator is really helpful. And the fact that it's free is beneficial to those that may not have the ability to pay for something like this. But I would like to see a little more detail on the diversity of attendees and also the performers and artists that will be involved. I think they involve people in the community really well in planning, and I think that they've hit a really good stride there in making sure that the people that are helping make the decisions are people in the community, because those are who are being served. Again, they have a good plan for how they will evaluate attendees, I think, but again, just what kind of things are they looking for as a result of that. There was one more. Oh, just I think their timeline was pretty clear. I just don't know how it would impact them. Decatur's not that far from Fort Wayne, and August 26th is Taste of the Arts Festival, and that's a pretty huge event in our region. So I know this festival is 3 days, where Taste of the Arts is just one, but I think that is something to note.
Thank you, Andy. And we'll have the second panelist to speak to the Kikianga Festival application. Barrett, go ahead and say a few words.
I really have nothing to add. Andy really hit everything. I will just, again, maybe emphasize the community, the underserved community aspects, as well as the direct or indirect artistic support, maybe showing some more details there in more ways that that might help to emphasize the goals of this project.
Do we have any opposing views or additional comments from any of the panelists? Go ahead, Gabriel.
I had just one thing. I noticed that much of this event is outdoors, and I took a look at their schedule for the event. And they noted the Riverside Center as handicap accessible, which is great. But also the majority of the activities are not going to be at that specific center. And I thought an idea they might try is enlisting a few golf carts to transport people around the campsites. So even those with mobility issues can get a good look at all the festival has to offer. And also I wanted to consider what the parking situation might be like if it's out in an open field or if it's on an actual asphalt parking lot. That could also be a mobility concern.
Thank you. Do we have any additional comments? Go ahead, Brandon.
Two additional things I'd like to add is thinking about going beyond just making available and marketing the date, the time, and the location of the event, especially to the underserved communities that they're hoping to reach. They touch on, this is an event for everyone. We want everyone to come. We do what we can so that everybody can come. It's free, it's accessible, all of those sorts of things. But then they talk about, we make sure that it's known by putting it in the newspaper and the radio and all of that. And I think it is essential that you are putting in extra work to get those communities engaged and coming. There's no guarantee that a low-income individual is going to have any access to a newspaper, hear the radio anywhere, see the news spot, any of that kind of stuff. So really putting in that hard work to actually engage them, not just serve them the date, time, and location. And then the other one was in the project timeline. I would be curious to know where in that timeline the collaboration and programming efforts are happening with the schools, the community partners, and the community at large, when in the year that's actually happening. That's what I've got.
Thank you, everyone. Okay, please update your scores and comments in the system. Indicate when you are ready, and we will move on to the next application. Okay, I think we're ready to move on. We will look at the next application, Mental Health America of Northeast Indiana, and we're going to hear from the panelist, Andy.
I think this is a great idea to impact people through art. They used research to show that there's evidence that this is impactful, and I think that that is really important when you're talking about mental health, that you're using evidence-based practices. The goal essentially is, that people are healing, but I think it's important to also have a few more concrete goals, again, with a percentage of people will feel that they are that this is making a difference. Just something a little more concrete to be able to evaluate more specifically on how the program is going. I think it's very important and thoughtful that they are involving an artist that uses art to heal from mental illness, because I think having that lived experience is very important in relating to the participants in the group, and that anyone in the future that they bring in as well will also have that lived experience. I think to help understand a little more of the impact, the TikTok page that they provided didn't have any of the videos they indicated that it would. One thing to note is, like, people delete from their TikTok page a lot, and I think maybe having something that was a little more static, like a YouTube video that probably wouldn't have been deleted, would have been a little better in giving us an example of what that would have looked like. I mean, I could kind of gather what a therapeutic session would be, but just for that example, would have been really great. I think they really did a good job on touching on how they would seek underserved populations by physically, or communicating with the people that serve those communities already, and finding them that way. Again, I will reiterate that their location, Studio 7, is on a bus line. That's very important to getting there, and it is in a neighborhood that is sometimes underserved as well. And so I think the location that they're choosing is great. I think just a little more details on who exactly they feel, as far as diversity goes, that they would be addressing would be helpful to understand a little more. And I don't really have any concerns on the project management. I think the timeline was reasonable and it was clear to understand, and their budget made sense.
Thank you, Andy. We are discussing the Mental Health America of Northeast Indiana application, and the next person to speak on that is going to be Brandon.
Thank you so much, Andy. You also touched on most things that I had. A couple of things that I'm curious about would be that the supporting documentation is a nice representation of what the artist's art looks like, and what art of other other artists that take part in experiences like this, what their art looks like. And because this is a new program, I know that there's not going to be supporting evidence of what art is going to look like by the participants in this project. But because I am gathering that most of the participants in this program are not going to be trained artists, they are going to be the individuals that participate in these sessions of support, and they're just going to become artists in that day. I would just be curious to see more of what is that going to look like. I don't know exactly how they would have done that since it hasn't happened yet, but that the supporting details didn't really give me an idea of what's really going to be created by the individuals that are going to participate. And my only other thing was I have a large concern about the budget. The line item for the artist fee for this singular artist that is going to be teaching these classes, I crunched some numbers, and the 14,800 divided by the 23 sessions that they're planning in the calendar year comes out to $645 per session. And if that is indeed what they are going to pay this artist to teach this 1 hour class, that's incredible. If they are going to be able to support that dollar amount, that's incredible. But I'm not sure that's very realistic. I would just be very curious to know the justification of paying an artist for an hour class plus their time, talent, and their artistic quality. How you're justifying $645 per session for this one individual. So I'm just very curious about that.
Thank you. Do we have any other opposing comments or other perspectives from, go ahead, Barrett.
Piggybacking on what Brandon said in just looking more into it, I do wonder about the 14,000 towards the artist, but it also does say it includes travel. So maybe just giving more information. If you're going to have such a large line item expense like that, obviously the money, we want it to go to the artist, but just maybe explaining it a little bit better. And another area that seemed like it could use a little more explanation, and I guess maybe Brandon did also kind of hit on this as well. Other artists benefiting from the project, listing the number of 75. Does that mean that they're including everyone that's involved in these classes as an artist? Which doesn't necessarily seem like that fits what the scope or the meaning behind the grant really is. So if you're going to list numbers like that, maybe just try to give a little more explanation behind it.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, then I'll go ahead and have the panelists update their scores and their comments online and indicate to me when you're ready to move on. Wonderful. Okay, we're going to look at Miami County Artisan Gallery application, and the first panelist that's going to speak about that application is Barrett.
Just 1 second to pull that up. All right. So my general comments here. This seems like an excellent project from just as an overall view. There's a large number of artists from the local area that are involved. Multiple artistic disciplines are being utilized. There's a great deal of cooperation with the local community, and it seems that past year's experiences are definitely directing the future years of the project. Again, there's a large number of artists that are local artists that are being supported. Just scroll to that section. And meeting engagement. I felt like the applicant did a really great job of thoroughly discussing all the questions involved here as far as community engagement and idea strategies, and demonstrating how they plan to do that. I guess the only critique or constructive feedback would be that in the timeline, where is that? I'd like to see more specifics as far as the timeline and their key goals, and not, the timeline that was given was essentially just the day of activities. And I wanted, if I'm going to have a sense that this is a well thought out project, I want to see everything that's leading up to the actual day, not just the day of events. And that is it that I have.
Okay, thank you. We are going to hear from our second reader, Gabriel, regarding the Miami County Artisan Gallery.
Right. Working backward, I had some information missing about the rest of the people who are going to be part of the staffing. They listed their lead staff. They seem really well qualified. But, are they going to have guides, people to help set up and tear down, security, medical personnel? That might be included in their staffing description to give us a good idea of the support staff they're working with. I also was curious about the numbers of participants. Let me find the specifics on this. Yeah, I wasn't sure if this counted just the sign up for artist vendors, sign up for businesses, contracted performances. They list these as justifications for their participant numbers, but I don't think that actually includes people that will be attending as guests and like the public that'll be walking through. I'd love to see the projected attendance for this if they have an idea of how many people will be coming. Let's see. Also wanted a little bit more detail looking at their budget as far as how much each artist will be paid per person, or if artist payments vary from person to person. Loved seeing that the featured artists were from Indiana and local to Peru and the surrounding area. And I thought as a bit of extra, showing more examples of specific artists' work in their flyer and their website would be a great way to promote those artists and also give us an idea of the quality of the artists that they're presenting. I'd say that's it.
Great. Do we have any additional comments, opposing or new? Andy, go ahead, please.
So in the idea section, I have two things here. One, they don't really mention disability, and I know you don't have to mention all the types of diversity that you'll be including, but in the counties that they serve, they mentioned Wabash and Grant County, which have two huge disability service providers in ARC of Wabash and Carry Services, that I think it would be really great to collaborate with just to have that increased inclusion there. So that's just an idea for them. But in the part of like how they're implementing, they say that they're implementing idea practices through their training sessions, but they didn't really go into much detail on that. And I would just like to have more information on what that entails.
Okay, and Brandon, did you have an additional comment as well?
Yeah, piggybacking off of what Gabriel said about the projected participation numbers, I read that as they list 100 adults, 50 children, and then they say 100 artists. I read that as them expecting that there would be 150 patrons at the festival. The reason why that's important for me is because then I made an assumption about their marketing dollars in their budget. And I am saying that I'm curious about the $2,000 planned for marketing and web, because they say that the paper and radio ads have been donated in kind. And so to me, if all that's really left is print marketing of some sort, $2,000 seems really high if you only think you're going to get 150 people. So I would just love some more specifics on what does the participation really look like, because we're not seeing that anywhere. And then why is that marketing number so high if it seems like this is actually going to be a small event? But then then I'll tie that back in with, is if there are going to be 100 artists impacted by this, including the vendors and everyone in the competition and all this kind of stuff, that's a pretty massive festival. So if then you're only expecting 150 patrons, those numbers don't add up to me. So I think that Gabriel is correct. We are missing how many people they think are going to come to the festival.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Please update your scores and your comments, and we'll just wait a moment for everyone to indicate that they have done that, and we will go on to the final application. Okay, I am going to now invite Gabriel to speak to the Miami County Economic Development Authority's application.
Alex, I have that I am the first reader and Andy is the second reader.
Is accurate. I misread that. Go ahead.
Okay, okay.
Sorry.
So you're in the clear, Gabriel. Sorry. So because this project is in its infancy and such early stages of its planning, I think it's really hard to make an opinion about the scope of this thing, how meaningful and impactful and how high the artistic quality is going to be, because they are unsure and the application is riddled with a lot of we're not sure because we're still in the early stages of the planning. So talking about just the overall goal, it's clear that the idea is probably going to be wonderful and it's very well meaning and it sounds like a great way to involve the community, but without a clear really idea of what it's really going to be and if it's going to work and what all the logistics are going to be and how the community is going to be involved and what it's all going to take to put this on. I just am not sure if it's going to be meaningful and impactful or not. So I'm under the impression that the majority of the funding dollars are going to be used to financially benefit the headliner performing groups, that they are hoping to be pretty substantial national acts. And those are not Indiana artists. And that is such an important element of this grant, is that it's going to be impacting Indiana artists and the dollars are going to be intended to be spent on non-local artists. So I do think that is cause for concern in this application. Moving on to the idea section, because this project is in its infancy right now, there are still many areas that are unclear and how this project is going to serve the community. A couple of areas that I would urge them to consider would be what specific underserved communities are going to be engaged. How will they be engaged and then brought to the table to collaborate and help plan the event? What idea strategies are going to be employed in order to make this meaningful and impactful and of high artistic quality for those underserved communities that are going to choose to be engaged? And then how will they measure the impact that it has? There was really no information about how they plan to measure the impact beyond social media posts. I think that they said they read social media to see, and I think that that's in the digital social age. I think that we use that as a we're gonna use social media to give us the idea of how everybody feels, but there are so many barriers there because not everybody that's going to participate is necessarily going to A, be on social media, or B, interact with the social media page in any way to give their opinion. So I think that is that does not go deep enough at all. That is so surface level of getting any sort of feedback on what sort of impact you had. And then project management, two portions here that I think are unclear is what community engagement activities and planning sessions are going to take place leading up to and then following the event, and what planning actions have already happened or are going to happen in preparing for this event. And then in the budget, because at this moment they don't have any artists secured, I think it's just not feasible to project that the line item $16,000 for the artist fee is what it's going to be, because without having any artist secured, and it almost sounds like just a lot of uncertainty other than one artist who they're going to have it all play at this event. I don't think that they can have any sort of clear idea at this time what that needs to be. Now, maybe they are deciding we're going to have to find artists that fit within our $16,000 budget. And I'm going to imagine that's probably what it is, but they aren't discussing that anywhere. They're just kind of saying, we really want this artist and we're going to see if it happens or it doesn't happen. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Brandon. So we're discussing the Miami County Economic Development Authority application, and I do have Gabriel as our second panelist to speak on this application.
Alrighty, I'm going to work backward. Let's see. Once more, and this has happened a few times with several applications. The lead staff they mentioned is great. Love to see some more numbers as to how many staff or volunteers will be running things like booths, security, information, charity collection, the face painting that they mentioned. That would really help me determine if there are enough people involved to make this event a success, especially considering that they're anticipating 3,000 people attending this event. It's probably a good idea to give those numbers of who else is going to be helping with this. I wanted them to make sure on the day of the event that they leave time for setup and teardown, as well as tech changes between musical acts. The proposed schedule looked just a little bit tight. I also wanted to see a planning timeline for the event, like when do they start advertising? When are food trucks and other vendors contacted? When do you intend to get the bands confirmed, or are there hotel accommodations to work out? Loved seeing that the community businesses are so supportive financially of this event. Scrolling up, they provided really good demographic information on the area they're wanting to serve, but I was left wondering as to how those communities will directly benefit from the performance, since the information given was pretty general and not perhaps indicative of the actual attendees of the event. I was wondering how they're going to be handling the fundraising aspect of their concert, since this is a concert that is going to be fundraising for veteran groups. They didn't really mention any specific veteran groups that the money would be going to and who it would be impacting. Adding those details would add to the strength of their application considerably. I was wondering if any of the planning committee or the board of directors were actually veterans. If these are the people they're hoping to serve through this, making sure you include those people in your planning process would be a great idea. Let's see. More specifics as far as your idea strategies would be great. Moving up to artist support. I thought it was an amazing amount to provide to your artists. You list 15 artists involved, and I'm wondering if that counts the bands you intend to hire and the USAF band. Because I don't feel like that's right, but it might be. I'm wondering if the money is going to be paid directly to the artists themselves, or if it counts things like manager commission, sound and lights, and especially travel expenses. Say if you're busing somebody in from Illinois. I also echo the concern about possibly making sure you're supporting Indiana artists with this money. I had a kind of an idea. I was wondering if they intend to hire only cover bands, which was what I seemed to see in the examples, or if there was maybe an opportunity for local original musicians to be promoted, especially if they're veterans. Being able to share their stories through their music would be pretty cool, especially for a fundraiser. And that's all I've got.
Okay, do we have any other thoughts from other panelists? Barrett, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, thanks. Echoing on what's kind of already been mentioned, there's a lot of vagueness to this application. And I don't think that it's necessarily for it to be so vague. Obviously, the goal here, as stated, is celebrating Patriots Day and trying to give back to the local veteran community. They already have one arts organization already slated for this project, which is the Air Force Band of Mid-America. Yet they don't actually list them as artists anywhere in the application, which is kind of contradictory. These are all professional musicians. They just happen to be in the military. That organization should be their headliner group. That's the one that they already have slated, that you already know, and they're going to be the most professional musicians that they're going to have at this event. The military bands, money does not go directly to the musicians. They're all paid by the government. That's already been paid for by the tax dollars. The expenses involving with a military band come down to either travel expenses or just the expenses involved with the actual event itself and the logistics there. So they could help their application a great deal, first listing the Air Force Band as their main event, and then trying to explain the need for the funds to help support this, and then bolster it by bringing in your local bands, which they do say 2 to 3 local regional musical groups. So I just feel like there's a lack of maybe understanding of what they're really doing here initially as an organization or as a project. And I would suggest them maybe even reaching out again, since it's the one organization they already have slated for this project, reaching out directly to the Air Force Band of Mid-America to help get guidance from them, because that's what that organization does on a daily basis all the time. So I think those areas could clear up some of the vagueness of this project and help to bolster and improve the application itself.
We have additional new comments or opposing opinions. Oh, go ahead, Brandon.
Yeah, so I didn't mention this earlier, and I do apologize about this. But I am a little bit confused about, man, where's it at? Oh, how they've given this great explanation, great as in like lengthy explanation of how they reached their number of 3,000 attendees. But then I'm not sure that it actually seems realistic, because there's so many factors that are going into whether or not it's actually going to be 3,000. They mention the Honeywell Center is usually completely sold out, and that's 1,500. And because it's a 6-hour event, we think it's going to be 3,000. But those are not, those two things don't work together exactly. So it really is just, it's a huge estimation. And I know they have to estimate somewhere, but I do think that it's, given the scope of what it sounds like this event is going to be, my opinion is that 3,000 seems extremely high. And that would, because 1,500 is a complete sellout at the Honeywell Center. And that's when they're bringing enormous national acts and those sorts of things. So I think having a little bit more modesty in your numbers would be more realistic, so that it's showing that you are not being that you're not being too lofty with your goals in your first year. To be modest in what you are trying to achieve in your first year of a festival is okay. And if you exceed your own expectations, that's amazing.
Thank you, everyone. Oh, go ahead, Gabriel, sorry.
So I actually had the same thing come to mind as Brandon and had forgotten to mention it. Yeah, I wasn't quite sure if the participation numbers are reasonable, because you're basing this on the Honeywell Center. They have an immense amount of advertising power and a very established reputation. And whereas this is a new event, I was wondering, you mentioned the Chris Kindle Market event. perhaps take a look at that event's attendance and maybe even factor in the average concert attendance numbers for the bands that you are hoping to book. That might give you a more realistic idea of how many people you are going to be expecting. Also, getting some details as to how big your intended venue is and how intensely you're prepared to advertise would also help factor into that number, I think.
Okay, thank you so much, panelists. Please go ahead and if there's no more comments, we'll finalize your scores and update your online comments in the system. And please let me know when you've done that. Okay. Thank you, Barrett, Andy, Brandon, and Gabriel. Thank you so much. This concludes the first of Region 3's Arts Project Support Panels. Applicants will be notified of the status of their grant following the June Commission meeting. If you have any questions, please contact Heather Clausen or Phil Slane. Thank you very much.